our design and sustainability panel. We have Bobby Mukherji, very well-renowned architect, Hemant Khurana, Executive Director, Saint-Gobain, India, Patrick O'Meara, Head of Business Development, Sustainable Hospitality Alliance, Reza Kabul, President, ARK Reza Kabul Architects, Sonu Shivdasani, OBE, Guardian of the Culture, CEO and Joint Creative Director, Soneva. Our moderator for this session is Ajaya Sharma, Senior Editor Markets and Anchor, Times Network. ET now. So ladies and gentlemen, I hand over to Ajaya Sharma.
Thank you very much for joining us all this evening for this interesting discussion. We're going to have future trends in sustainability and luxury hospitality. As you can see, we've got all stakeholders here on the panel, eminent architects, to talk about design. We also have Patrick joining us from London, Patrick O'Meara, and Sonu Shivdasani is joining us from Maldives. He's been a pioneer in the hospitality space and a practitioner of a lot of stuff we are going to talk today in this discussion. Hemant represents Saint-Gobain and Jabeen and all these Bobby and Reza is also here. They bring in the perspective of architecture and design. So just to set the context, why is there a need to discuss this issue at large on this platform today? First of all, I'd also like to thank Saint-Gobain, HVS, ANAROCK for choosing ET now as a partner to host this panel discussion and of course carry the coverage on our channel. So ladies and gentlemen, just coming to Goa for this panel, many of you may have observed, you've been traveling to Goa for such a long time, the way the new Goa airport has renovated. In fact, just taking a leap out of that, it's just not the airport. The entire country is witnessing a lot of upgradation in infrastructure, be it railway stations, airports, highways. And post-COVID, we've seen there has been a very massive tailwind in the luxury hospitality space. Not only that, up till now, hospitality, luxury hospitality in particular, was seen as a very cyclical industry. They would see one or two very good years and then a long pause. But post-COVID, even the trends which are coming up, we speak to some of the top hoteliers, leading ones, one is getting a sense that because of booming business, our country is one of the highest growing country globally of that size, shining star globe. There is a structural tailwind to the luxury hospitality sector now. Lot of investment is pouring into it. At the same time, our country is also taking up challenges in the field of carbon emissions and sustainability. So at a time when the entire country, the infrastructure is witnessing upgradation, luxury hospitality is also infrastructure of sorts. That is also witnessing fresh investment being poured in that space, rooms being added, and the entire customer experience, customers are getting much more demanding and they want to experience the best in class which is available globally. How can we marry the two into one? Objectives of achieving carbon emission targets, sustainability, at the same time creating world-class infrastructure in terms of luxury hospitality. That is the context which we are going to discuss today. And so there are three elements to it, right? One is design. How can a total rethink on design can happen? The other part is materials. What are the future materials which we as designers, investors, material providers need to bring on the table so that the future-ready hospitality infrastructure projects can be made. And the third is experience. So let's start with the first element, which is design. Bobby, I'd like to start with you. You travel across the world and have projects here in India, everywhere. How are you witnessing change at the design level? And you must be also experiencing in your own projects.
When it comes to the sustainable angle of in design, sometimes in a dilemma is in Hindi you say dharm sankat. When we want to go really sustainable and make projects which are truly green, it also comes with a high cost element. So then we get into a fix, with the clients and the operators. We have this much budget within which we want to complete the project, and when we see that being more green would land up increasing the cost of the project, then many times it goes out the window. The market is not so evolved. There are certain brands in the world that are being able to do it, but they are catering to a very limited, evolved clientele. The guests. There are guests who are paying for that experience, and they're willing to pay more once they know that every segment of the aspect of the hotel, from operations to the way they built the hotel, has been done in a nice, sustainable way. But a large chunk of that aspect is diluted in the process, because some moment costing comes in. There are some products made out of China, and those things land up totally. We are forced to use them. The best way forward that we are trying to do with some of our clients who are receptive, it goes a lot with the brand also. That's a message that I like to send across to all the brands. When we are working with our Indian homegrown brands, we are able to have a lot of fun. Reason being, they are a lot more receptive. We are able to use, locally made products, and we are able to even have more customized design solutions where we're not totally guided by some brand standard, imposing heavily onto you that this is the look and you're diverting from that, and many times the people across the table who we have to make presentations to, they might not necessarily have been much in India. They do not really know the ground reality and how to build it. They land up, many projects have this foreign architects, they land up sending their designs, and then we have to greatly Indianize it. In the process, you lose the design element of it. The whole essence of the design is lost. But here, when we know, this is our craftsmen available, these are the materials available that are locally sourced, need not from across India, even that particular region. When we are sons of the soil, we are able to put together these things in a far more effective way.
So it can be done, but it is a bit challenging at this stage, is the message.
Yes, so when it comes to luxury, now the world's idea of luxury is, all the new projects, the big brands that you see, it's quite overly done up. There's so many types of materials on the walls, flooring, and they're rich materials. But I think beauty can also be done in an elegant way. So if you change your mindset that this means luxury, the earlier in the IHCL days, when the first hotels when we were kids, we used to go to see during the times of Mrs. Kerkar designing the hotels. They were also luxury projects, but they were done in such a simple way, and still it reached luxury. Everything was made out of India. We didn't have to import nothing in those days, except for some equipment perhaps. And it looked very luxurious. So I think the certain amount of freedom has to be given to the designers, and more the hotels that are being respected worldwide have a sense of being local, and it's not necessarily something that agrees to certain brand standard, and those brands are slowly overtaking all these other brands. They are even getting better ARR.
So you don't have to get stereotyped, and you need to give some freedom to the architect to put that design to work in order to achieve that. Sonu, let me come to you. You've been a pioneer in the field. And
Thank you.
You have really implemented sustainability in your properties and investments across the world quite ahead of time when this word did not really got the attention. How did you manage to do that?
Right. I think I'd like to, thank you for that, and I'd like to actually sort of build on what was said earlier. So I think a couple of things. So firstly, we've generally found that sustainability is often more economical, and especially at these high energy costs, the more sustainable option definitely medium term generates a high ROI. So I mean, obviously in our context here in the Maldives, the opportunity is solar because we're on remote islands, so we're generating our own power. So we actually make a decision on how we power our hotels. We don't just hook it into the grid. And solar energy today, we just placed an order with sort of financing at 8%. I think it's working out about 7 to 8 US cents per kilowatt. That includes battery backup, compared with about 30 cents for diesel at today's prices per kilowatt. So it's about a third, and even in environments like India or other places, a more sustainable option, a more energy efficient option may actually be the most, the cheapest solution. So I think from that point of view, ecological solution is not always more expensive. Sometimes it may cost a little bit in the short term, but in the medium to long term, the payback is there. So it's financially more sound if one has a sort of medium-term investment perspective. And quite often it's quick. I mean, for example, the branches from our trees fall down, we put in a paracetamol and turn it into charcoal, so we don't have to buy charcoal and import it. That saves us 30,000 of charcoal. The waste food and the waste cardboard. Waste in our resorts is an asset, not a liability. And we have these title, which is Waste to Wealth Manager, because we believe it's an asset. The cardboard and the food turns into compost, which creates a lot of salads for our gardens, which avoids about $200,000 to $300,000 of salads and vegetables bought in market prices. So ecology has generally been more economical to us, and there are many examples of that I could give. So I think that's been our experience over the years. In terms of how we've done it to merge luxury and sustainability, and to build on what was said earlier, luxury is not about materials, and that's the thing. People quite often think it is, elaborate materials means luxury, but luxury is essentially a philosophy. It's that which is rare, that which is new to you, but at the same time true. It brings a chord in your heart when you touch it and feel it and experience it. And we've always realized that at Soneva, that it is that, it's a philosophy. We actually have a guiding principle that drives our creativity called intelligent luxury, where we're really questioning and challenging what really is luxurious, because we find that today the wealthy and successful are no longer the landed gentry. They're no longer in the countryside with a lot of fresh air and space and privacy. They're in cramped environments, and they're exposed to a lot of gilt and gold and chandeliers all the time. So for them, luxury is about being able to walk barefoot for a week, or having that salad that's plucked from the garden, or just seeing cars, etc. So I think we've managed to achieve this by really thinking and questioning what really is luxury, and I think it works very well where luxury and sustainability go hand in hand, and they're not really opposites. And I think fundamentally it all starts from having a purpose. It's as an organisation, I think we need to have a purpose that goes beyond simply enriching shareholders like ourselves and our partners and paying employees a salary. When you can do that, it can be very engaging for your hosts, and it also drives innovation. So our core purpose is to slow life. This vision of creating luxuries whilst minimising our impact on the planet and enhancing the health of our guests. And our hosts supported, and that's energised them, and that's resulted in what we've created and the creativity that we've managed to achieve.
Spoken like a true leader, I would say, because leaders actually see opportunities where many look at it from a threat standpoint. Patrick, your organization works and provides guidance and help to a lot of clients across the world. And as you were talking earlier, this entire idea of sustainability, at what stage does the investors, developers need to include it in their strategy? Is it something which is achieved once the design structure is in place? Is it something which we need to talk about right in the ideation stage? How can we achieve the efficiencies which the sustainability solutions are promising us?
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. I'm particularly proud to be here. I'm just very sorry I can't be there in person. So thanks to our host, Jabeen. I think if we all had a magic wand, we would say we did this from the very beginning. And what is interesting is there are emerging businesses, and a small number like Sonu, like Soneva, who have built it from the beginning. It's interesting that there are some disruptor brands where this is where their approach to sustainability is such that it's fundamental. When we spoke earlier, I said to you, increasingly your sustainability strategy will become your business strategy. That they won't be separate things. Sustainability is not nice to do on a Friday. So if we had another one, we would say, beginning in certain person companies doing that. The challenge is that there are thousands, many thousands more of hotels that are in older buildings that need retrofitting or that need updating or future proofing. And sometimes in those cases, it is very, very difficult. I go back to the point which was very well made by our first speaker, that says when it comes, it's all very well to, you have to pay some more for it, and then it becomes a question of managing the costs. I'm very impressed when we know Soneva very well, hugely impressed by how you turn what might be a challenge into innovation. We did some research a couple of years, asking 1,500 business leaders, not just in hospitality, 1,500. We asked them one question: climate change, threat or opportunity? And 84% said opportunity.
Right.
We did the same survey for a year, climate change, threat or opportunity, 1,500 respondents, all CEOs for the C-suite, and 84% said opportunity. But to convert that into reality, because we think in the short term, and have to produce short-term results, is wrong. There's a longer term view here.
Right.
But I'm very encouraged by our previous two speakers saying that we have to, and Sonu has clearly gone some way with this, redefine what sustainable luxury is. And rethink it and reimagine it. And I think you captured it very well, Sonu. It is rare experiences. It is not necessarily about expensive materials and being deep in carpet. It is rare experiences. And the trend that is emerging very quickly now is that our future customers, our future employees, and our future business leaders are far more attuned to that equitability in nature.
Right.
And they are, one of our ambitious items to think about this word called consumer. They don't want necessarily to be consumers, they want to be stewards more and more. Now I think that trend has some way to go, but it is certainly and people look for different kinds of experiences now, and this will increase as we think about it.
Right. So sustainability strategy is an essential part of the overall business strategy. In fact, Reza, I'll come to you on that point which Sonu also made, that it may appear that there are high fixed costs at the initial level, but over a period of time, they actually get divided over a long period of time. The benefits make up for the seemingly higher initial costs. You worked, I was just looking at some of your design projects which we were talking earlier. You have able to strike a balance to a large extent so that sustainability practices marry good economics. How has your experience been so far?
There are two angles to the whole thing. One is if you're looking at a city hotel, and one is if you're looking at a resort hotel or destination hotel. when you're looking at a city hotel, sustainability, as Bobby said, it comes at a cost. So you have to bear in mind the cost. Most of our developers, promoters, what happens is they have budget in mind, and normally they overshoot the budget. So what happens is they don't even have the funds to finish the entire property. So the structure is done, the interiors are left, few floors are left, maybe 100 rooms, 50 rooms, whatever is left, and then it comes at the second phase. So a lot of the clients have a problem even completing a project. So where does the question of sustainability come? Yes, sustainability is good, but it comes at a cost. So they have to keep it in mind. First thing, when you look at a destination hotel, like we're doing some hotels in Khurana, up in the hills, and there, yes, we are doing real sustainable structures. We are using the stones from the local hillside that we are cutting, and we are making tables, and we are using the same stone to construct the buildings. They are all Gram+1 buildings. It's very much possible, like our friend just mentioned in the Maldives. So that's possible. But in a city hotel, first of all, getting the material to Khurana, and that too in that destination where we are building, is a major challenge. So we are doing it with the local materials over there. So that's the most sustainable thing that you can do. But in a city hotel, it differs. So you have to strike a balance.
So let's catch the bull by the horn. Let's approach this idea of material. One is the cost aspect of material. The other, Hemant, I want you to also talk to us about the traditional material and the evolution of material which has happened over a period of time, by which those efficiencies can be achieved, which help you to make up for that seemingly higher cost appear upfront over a period of time.
No, thanks. I think that a very interesting point. I think so. I might just want to start with two very fundamental needs. One is energy. The second is the resources. And both these, I think, we have taken for granted for a long period of time. And what we've seen in Europe, for example, on the energy front, so it's something that can happen anywhere, right? So energy is not something that's easily available, it's expensive, and also with resources, right? So what is not so well known is the fact that buildings account for nearly 42%. They consume a lot of energy and a lot of resources, huge amount of resources to build. And they account for nearly 40% of the CO2 emissions globally. This number may be slightly lower for India because India, as you know, is not even built 20% of what it has to build for the future. 70% of our population is still rural. So what we are saying is, we are looking at a scenario that India has to build huge number of buildings, and these buildings are going to consume enormous amount of energy. 40% of the CO2 emissions is accounted for by these buildings, and we will require a lot of resources. So that's the reality. And when we are talking about this kind of energy consumption, CO2 emissions, and also the resource requirement, I think we have to really address this issue of sustainability. Is this sustainable the way we are building? So when you look at a conventional building in India, the way it is built is clearly it's a heavy construction. So what you are doing is you are building, with materials which are today easily available. Maybe it's you convert a clay to a brick, or you make a block and you use a lot of steel, concrete. A lot of these materials have what is called a very high level of embodied energy. We often worry about, what is consumed, during the operations, but the embodied energy kind of explains nearly 13% of the CO2 emissions. So that is of the 40%, nearly 1/3 goes into while constructing using the materials that we are using. And the balance 27% of the 2/3 would go into really the operation side of it.
So when we are designing buildings, I think it's extremely important to understand that if we use a lot of mass which comes from this conventional materials like cement, steel, concrete and a whole lot of other such things, what we are doing is trapping a lot of energy which can be used in a sense in a much better way. So how can we reduce the whole what is called as the mass of the dead load of the building? And so when you look at India, this is really both a big opportunity as well as a lot of challenges. So how I think this whole thing can be addressed is clearly, I think today technology is making it possible. Both will be considered the design of the building. So if you are considering the design of the building right from the inception and incorporating the right kind of materials, technologies. For example, designing a building for a lightweight construction material. As an example, instead of using a heavier material like a brick block, those kinds of which also require a lot of reinforcement of sand, steel, cement, concrete. So when you design in the right way, what you are doing is you are actually reducing the dead load of the building, and that building is then allowing you to construct consuming much lesser, and it's also a building which performs during the course of its life cycle much better, because these are materials which are, we would say, well certified, they're made in factories which are international standard, and hence they also control the kind of energy that is required to make them. So from a materials perspective, I think we have to keep in mind that when we are going to construct these many buildings in the future, and whether it's hospitality or otherwise, I mean hospitality in particular, because as you rightly mentioned, it's luxury and we are trying to address the issue of sustainability. So it's even more incumbent upon the industry to use the right kind of materials to construct these buildings.
And many of the leaders of the industry, hotel groups have started adopting it. Perhaps the requirement is the rest of the industry also in smaller towns, because also there is one legacy hotels and there are new hotels. A lot of new hotels are adopting many of these ideas. Legacy hotels also need to repurpose themselves and reimagine the design, the structure, the sustainability angle so that they can participate in this entire movement of sort which will become.
So good that you raised this, I just want to bring up India, for example. So all the leading chains, and many of them are here,
Right.
you find that all the leading chains are already on this subject in a big way. But the reality of India is 90% of the hotels that were started last year or announced, they were all in the smaller cities, tier 2, tier 3, and the size of these hotels less than 100 keys. So the real challenge is really how do we get these smaller hotels in smaller cities to build more sustainably. I think that's the key.
I think as all stakeholders here and members of the audience, the role and the onus is also upon us to educate them, to raise awareness that all these material, it can be achieved by a good marriage of design, willingness and material management, and it can be achieved. Jabeen, I'll come to you for the experience angle. What's the point of a structure, of a resort, of a luxury hotel, if it doesn't reflect the soul, the local soul, as you just said? And you were giving some fine examples. Can you elaborate on that?
Thank you so much for that question. It particularly strikes a chord with me. We are today discussing design sustainability with respect to the future of hospitality. I think this subject is key to the future of entire humanity, our race itself. Sustainability in all forums, whether it is World Economic Forum or UNESCO, it has all agreed that net zero, the ultimate word, starts with design sensibility. And design has a lot of definitions, whether it is architecture or interior design, furniture design or product design. Design is about solving or bettering an existing situation. Today, we are in a situation. And what situation is that? We cannot actually belittle it into an energy crisis or just the near-scene crisis of unemployment or anything. As Albert Einstein puts it, we are now at a time when we have built the most luxurious of ships, fitted with all modern amenities which we can think of, sailing fast. But the only thing it lacks is a binocular. We don't know where we are headed to. That is the story. We don't know where we are headed to. The COVID was an iceberg. We slided past it. More might come. Are we prepared? So when you look at the entire situation, the ultimate savior is people. Only people united together with some aim, some philosophy, some single storyline can get us towards our destination. And I think above all governments or above all associations or organizations, one single industry which interacts with people is hospitality industry. Hospitality industry is where, as a speaker told in the morning, 8 billion people were covered in the tourism industry. That's the entire population of the planet. And when we can do that, we must also remember that we can be an engine for social change. So brands in hospitality should up their game. And I'm particularly saying that because, as Charles Correa says, we live in our stories and memories. We don't live in our houses or hotels, in our stories and memories. I'm a little disappointed that compared to till 2010, where hotel brands had a story to tell, a definite philosophy. When I went into a Taj property, I knew what Taj would be. When I went into the Meridian, I knew what would be. They had a philosophy of some virtues, values, stories, everything to touch people. But as time went by, what we are seeing is the brands are merging to address a faceless customer, or let me say commodity, called the traveler. That is sad. For example, please don't misunderstand me. In this Goa, the vibrant destination of India, in my room, I see veneers. Veneers are surface tea. Very much a picture of luxury there, but not even that hanging lamp had a Goan touch. So morning, we can wake up to anywhere in the world. In the lobby, I could be in New York or India. No, that's not it. We need our storylines. Yes, it comes with a cost. But that is what brands can afford. We cannot look at easy living and easy business because this is not easy times. We have to take the difficult path. To balance this, we can see this alternative hotel accommodations, Airbnbs and all coming. I think brands should up their game and be lighthouses more than recreational or commercial segment. They have to be validated as institutional segments where people can be educated. If you go for a holiday, there are activities like chess games happening here or maybe archery happening here. Why not organic farming? Why not a visit to their solar fields? Why not a visit to their arts and crafts?
So the idea is experience.
Yes, it should be a complete experience, and particularly with hotels, with all their employment, you said we are developing, like in the morning we heard. Together with this family, we should think of hotels as like townships.
Sure.
Embracing even schools, neighborhood and everything to bring in a philosophy, a story which will prove to be good for the mankind. So, for me, this conference of hope is just not hospitality looking at this,
but actual hope
thing,
for the
but
sector.
actual hope for humanity.
Very
Thank
good
you.
point. Very good point. Very good point. Bobby, I'll come to you on a very practical aspect. You know, There's such a lot of innovation, AI happening in material every day. A lot of inventions are happening. You've seen the industry work for 30 years plus, I'm assuming it right, and global best practices as well. Are you witnessing willingness for Indian developers, investors, also to apply those global best practices in Indian setup as well now? Are you having those kind of interactions, flexibility of material, so that a particular structure is just not meant for one particular solution? If the client changes, you can repurpose it, make it more flexible. Is that happening? Or some more work is required in that direction?
When it's a brand new hospitality project, I think it's built more like a hotel, and only a hotel probably can convert into a hospital, but need not become into an apartment building or an office building. But if you build smartly, the way it's been as seen in New York, there are some buildings which are 120 years old, and over the 120 years of lifespan, every 20 years they have seen a new kind of activity happening in the building. It probably started as a bank. Today it's a hotel. It's a bustling hotel. 20 years ago it was an apartment. It changes hands, and they were able to, depending on the situation at that time, they were able to modify that structure.
And now
so they did not have demolished the whole building. It's also the way they built those buildings in those days. They were so smartly built.
But material solutions can give that flexibility today.
Yes. If the landlord, or the investor, or a financial institution that owns that project, if they have that long-term vision of over 100 years, the buildings can be built very smartly, using lightweight materials, having a slimmer structural system that allows you to play around, changing the flow plate, internal workings, from to making it into a 2,000 square feet space to a 250 square feet space. It is possible. We have done that, but in our traditional RCC buildings, it gets a little difficult. But when you use steel construction with decking, it allows you a lot of flexibility. The outside, the glass shell, that stays constant, irrespective of the activity inside. So it's one of the best places in the world to see this actually having implemented is in New York City or a lot of Americas also.
Hemant, they say that India is actually not a country. It is actually a continent. Each state and the population and the target audience or size of the opportunity there requires a different strategy. Can you give us, because Saint-Gobain has for decades done work in material and it is way beyond glass as well. If you can give us a hint or some flavor of what kind of innovation is happening in materials now, which can help a lot of future investors and developers rethink their strategy overall.
No, I think broadly I would say that there are 3-4 key areas in which a lot of work is happening. I mentioned one, which was lightweighting. So the less material, the better it gets. Not only because you are using lesser material per se, because you're also reducing the dead load. Point to note is some of this needs to be done at the design stage, at the conception of the building. If you do it, then you will see the benefit. So that's one. I think a lot of lightweighting, you see that happening everywhere. Slimming, lightweighting, whatever you call it. That's one. I think the second area where you see is usage of materials, all kinds of materials, which enhance nanomaterials, various kinds of materials, which are enhancing the performance. A good example would be, as I said, buildings consume a lot of energy, and how can we cut the energy? So use materials as coatings of glass, for example, which allows a lot of natural light to come in, but cuts a lot of heat. So you reduce the air conditioning load, at the same time don't require to use the artificial lighting. So that's use of materials. So that's something that's happening a lot. I think the third area, I would say there is a lot of work that's happening, and it's particularly relevant for the hospitality industry, is the occupant or the guest comfort. Right? So I think There are various things. So we talked about thermal or heat, that's one. The other is the sound and the noise management. So there are all kinds of travelers. A business traveler who want to come and stay in a hotel and have a good night's sleep. And that is only possible if you control a lot of outside noise coming into the room. And we have made it possible by using specialized materials, technologies like double glazing and all of that, laminated glasses. So I think this entire area of, so you can have active air control, so we have materials which absorb a lot of bad air around you. So we've done, so around this whole air, heat, sound, I think you can think of the 5 senses. And so we do some overall well-being, whether it's physical or psychological. I think a lot of work happening in that space, so which ensures guest comfort and well-being. So I would say these are broadly 3 areas where we've done a lot of work. We've put up an experience center here that displays some of that, and one can really see the difference in rates.
So our time is yeah, Sonu.
Can I?
Sure, please.
Just quickly, but
yes.
in there.
Go ahead.
I think this opportunity in terms of sustainable materials in an urban environment, Hemant quite rightly pointed out the importance of the embodied energy in a building and considering that. Because if you think about it, the world's going to be more and more renewable, so the energy consumption during operation is going to drop dramatically. In terms of the fossil fuel energy consumption during operation, it's going to drop inevitably, invariably going to drop dramatically. But the embodied energy is something that we really need to address. And I think the biggest culprit in that is cement. And we're seeing some remarkable improvements in the cement industry in terms of as a company called Biomixon, and they're making cement from bacteria. And I think once that starts to develop and you create scale, that would be firstly a very cost-effective material. So it will eventually, at a scale, be cheaper than the cement industry, because it's a very heavy industry, cement. And of course, super sustainable, and it'll make a big difference and a big impact on the embodied energy building. So I think some of the developments around cement and bio-cement is positive. And then you have more sustainably orientated cement companies that do very well. So for example, there's Siam Cement in Thailand, which is now, I think, one of the largest companies on the Thai stock exchange. And they've actually grown and gobbled up regional neighbors, because they're the more ecological operator of cement, and their ecological advantage has given them an economical advantage. So we're seeing some improvement in the cement industry, but the big thing will be the new technologies. Sorry,
Patrick, you want to make a point? Closing comments by each of the panelists? Sure. Can you unmute yourself, Patrick?
There we are. Okay. Well,
yeah.
I just want to follow up on Sonu's point, and it has been mentioned a couple of times. The increased influence and ability of technology to change things, whether it is materials, but also individual technology. We at the Alliance, we have a low footprint, and we are contacted at least once a week now by high-tech, very often startup businesses who can offer solutions or platforms or some way of helping businesses to understand their impact and to mitigate it well. So that is an emerging, very important emerging trend, the role of technology. I think the second one that strikes me is the ongoing need for education. And very often, right inside the businesses, I was approached not long ago by a general manager. I was speaking to a conference of general managers, and she said, privately, I confess to you, I don't even know what carbon is, much less what to do about it. I'm too busy.
Sure.
So we have to sometimes we have to remember that we have to begin at the beginning. And still with a lot of people that provide that education. And some of that will come from our customers, and some of that, of course, we need to educate some of our customers as well.
Yes.
But I do think there is respect for technology and education and
yes, it is about knowledge, and it is about, that's the objective of this panel discussion as well, to raise awareness and try, the willingness will come only when awareness levels go up. Closing comments by the 3 practitioners over here. Bobby, share with us one sustainable practice which you have been doing last couple of years. You have kind of included in your style of design, or you would want a solution to over the years, from the material designers?
One of the projects that's in the pipeline that should open, I think, in a year's time, is the project we're doing with 11 hotels. It's a new, probably country's largest hotel, the Orica. The second Orica that's coming up, it's being made at the airport.
Okay.
Now it's fun doing that because we have a client like Shivdasani, and he himself is very, very aware of all these purposes, and so he himself comes up with bright ideas, and we're able to add things to it. And it's going to be, I think, this is a massive hotel, close to 700 rooms, and we are following all the best practices. And I think it should get a good rating once it's done. It's using your kind of materials, where it's lightweight structure, we're consuming less concrete, the window sizes are controlled, even in terms of guest comfort, we went out of the way to figure out how to make it as silent as possible. Across all brands, you would have noticed that, you had here a flush working in a neighbor's room or a bell ringing, troubling you, waking you up. You'll have an ambulance going by, waking you up. There's someone blaring music, watching a television in one room, the next room's getting disturbed.
Sure.
So using these new technology and lightweight, which is also ecologically great, is helped us find these solutions where it's completely soundproof, not getting disturbed. You've been efficient. All the materials that we're using are locally sourced, like within a radius of a few hundred kilometers.
So, can you sense the excitement in this answer of his? Because that's the designer which is talking.
I'm very excited about it.
Business guy was talking.
Yeah. So here is. So this is because we've been given that kind of freedom to do. Where I'm not bogged down by some brand standards. I know we have to make a great hotel, but how to make it, that freedom has been given to you. All our finishing materials, flooring, everything is sourced within 300 kilometers. All our materials mostly come from Gujarat or Maharashtra itself. So tiling, even in terms of air conditioning, the usage of fans to cool your room. There are certain people who do not want too much of air conditioning. They're happy with a certain amount of cooling with the fan blowing overhead. The bathing experience, a soft shower that doesn't consume so much of power, even limited number of lighting. You don't need so many light fixtures. All this helps.
Lovely. Jabeen, what's your favorite sustainability?
My favorite sustainability point would be to stress on the local
sources.
And I think it starts right from the point where I refuse to be local architect to any other architect from the world for any brands. My career in hospitality started when I said no to designing Le Méridien and Cochin as a local architect, wherein they finally approved my project, and I've been designing Méridien outside India also as the main architect. And always in my project I take in the local crafts and arts people also along with it.
Lovely.
And I think one big thing which we discussed in the morning was invest in India. And I think it should not be the bubble in which we invest. We have to invest in India, what India is for. I share my apprehension on one of the slides which I saw in the morning about the Delhi railway station built like a spaceship. No, I would rather want it to be like Chandni Chowk with Saint-Gobain's glass as skylight, allowing for all that fantastic dream stories of
So
India.
next time I meet the rail minister, I'm going to carry this suggestion of yours.
India should remain India, and we should actually reap out of India.
The soul of India should reflect.
Yes. No other development is worthwhile.
Reza, closing comment.
I think
If you've been doing or would you want to do?
building sensibly is the best way to be sustainable. And we are out of time here.
Lovely. Thank you very much, all of you.
Thank you.